What is up, NFL fans, and welcome back to another episode of The Way We See It. Only a couple more of these before we get back to For Your Viewing Pleasure. Still same crew. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Wesley Coleman. What's up, Wesley? How's it going?
Hey man, it's going good. We're creeping towards what sort of looks like real football a few times a weekend.
Well, it is real football. Like, I had this discussion with Kevin Smith yesterday on the whip around. He's like, well, it's closer to football. I was like, they're actually playing a game. It's not the starters. It's not as appealing, but it's a real game. Like, they're not playing flag football. Like, it's real football. And so I was excited. Were you excited to just to see your team back on the field playing preseason ball?
Oh, for sure. I just have like a real long-term approach to this because I'm expecting my team to have the first overall pick in the draft next year. So I have a long-term approach to just looking for small pieces of development.
Yeah.
That maybe makes them a good player like a year from now.
Well, that's a really good. Let's start there just as a topic that you just brought up and it comes to my brain. How do you approach, like, the Saints are not going to be that great this year.
I
think
yes.
Everyone that's a Saints fan knows that they're not going to be that great this year.
There's a couple idiots.
There's always a couple idiots. But even the coaching staff probably knows that it's going to be a struggle. And then they suffer an injury. I think I saw on Twitter yesterday, you guys lost, a center or something to an injury maybe?
Well, that was our backup center because our starting center, Eric McCoy, is one of the best centers in the league. He's not playing in the preseason.
Okay. So anyways, regardless, how do you approach, you just talked about the long-term vision, but does it dampen the excitement for the season when kind of have this inkling that, this team's just not going to have it?
Not for me in this situation because the Saints for years were kept trying to hold on to, after losing Breeze and losing Sean Payton, kept trying to just do anything to hold on to, keep a little bit of the culture together. Dennis Allen was a part of Sean Payton's coaching staff, and I was begging for them just to rebuild. We've got to start moving in the right direction, and it's going to take a season or two of a lot of losses. And so I've just said, as not being a hypocrite, I'm not going to complain during that couple of seasons as long as they are doing things to fix the salary cap and to get some younger players in here. I think it's difficult, and I think it will be difficult later in the year when we're 2-11. But I'm going to stick to it at least this season. I'm not going to be a hypocrite, and I'm going to hope that we draft a really good quarterback next year.
But are you still excited for this year?
Absolutely. I am looking for guys that are on rookie contracts. I want to see them show to where they're still going to have value towards the end of their rookie contract.
Yeah.
And earning a second contract. So just looking for things like that.
This is what I call a diehard season. You have to be a diehard fan, because if you're just like I watch the Saints when they're successful, or this could be for any NFL team, and they're struggling, and then they're not going to watch them if they're not, then it's going to be a tough year. They're not going to follow. They're just going to turn it off and eventually.
Halfway through the seasons, it's Saints Twitter is going to completely forget that we know this was going to be a bad year, and they're just going to be like, let's fire everybody. This new coaching staff is terrible. I'm like, okay. There will be plenty of that.
Hey, I'm a Pittsburgh Pirate fan. I'm used to losing, so I know what these diehard seasons are like.
Can you put in a word so they would let the Rangers sign Paul Skeens, please? That'd be great.
No. Well, let's week 1 in the NFL preseason is officially in the books, and I guess the question that I want to ask you, and this could be specifically just based on your thoughts on your own favorite team that you follow. In your case, the Saints. In my case, the Steelers. What, if anything, can we learn from the preseason? Because there's a lot of people that if you know a Browns fan, they're on cloud 9 right now. They think they found their next quarterback in Shedeur Sanders after it was I'm going to be honest, and I don't like the Browns at all. He was better than I thought he would look.
Sure.
But then again, it's preseason week 1, which comes back to the question, what exactly can you learn from preseason week 1?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily things you can learn, but the takeaways by the average fan is that everybody who didn't draft Shedeur Sanders in the first 5 rounds of the draft is an idiot.
Yeah.
And so we've got, obviously, fans of the Saints who drafted a quarterback in the 2nd round instead of Shedeur Sanders. So there's big overreactions to that. And I think that, numbers wise, if you just look at the numbers at the end of the game, Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart looked better than what people expected, or their numbers looked better than what people expected.
And it goes across the board when you talk about quarterbacks. Even Jalen Milroe did some good things in Seattle this past weekend. But it comes down to, I think, There are things that you can take away from the preseason. And the most important is, did you escape without any major injuries? Unfortunately, we always have those injuries. And I want to get your take on the Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals choosing to play their starters for an entire quarter in preseason week 1. What's your take on that? That's a risk. That's a gamble.
Well, I mean, they've taken the other risk the last multiple years to where they start off 0-4 or 1-3, so they need to risk the other way. And if obviously if he said I want to play the whole game, you tell him he's crazy. But if Joe Burrow is telling you like what we've done the last few years didn't help us get ready, and we need to be firing all, we can't be buried in a hole every year. You might want to listen to him a little bit. And so that offense needs to get some time together, and clearly their defense needs to get some time together.
The defense needs time together.
Yeah, I mean they've got all that. So I'm glad they're doing something different because they've notoriously not played starters in the preseason, and they've also been the worst Super Bowl contending team to the way they start the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season every single year. So they need to do something.
But it is a risk, and you have to ask yourself, is the reward worth the risk? And Joe Burrow can say, yeah, I want to go out there and play, and then if he gets rolled up on, which could be a fluke accident, you're just like, gosh, why in the hell is he in there? So it's always hindsight, and that's always the case. And I think that in the preseason, and I can't speak for every team, but I know for the Steelers, there are literally 3 or 4 roster spots that are available. Like, that is what you're watching. You're watching guys that are going out there killing themselves for a fringe spot, which might not even get a helmet on game day because they're probably going to be inactive. And so it is fun to watch. I enjoyed watching the Steelers play again, and it just was good to see football again. But at the same time, I think a lot of people, and every team is different. Obviously, the Browns with Shedeur Sanders, as we brought him up, they are looking for their quarterback this year. They don't know who it's going to be at this time. We can always assume that it's going to be Flacco, maybe Kenny Pickett. Where does Dylan Gabriel fall into this mix? Shedeur Sanders obviously plays well. That's a different set of circumstances. But for a lot of teams, if you have a solid quarterback situation, you're not really looking at many camp battles, so to speak. It's kind of just a formality, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's for sure. I mean, we've got to make it through this. We've got to learn something. We've got to
got to get through it.
We got to dig into it as much as it can possibly be.
Hell yes. Well, I want to go into something that happened in week 1, and since we're talking about week 1, that I wanted to bring up is it happened in the Jaguars-Steelers game, and there was a 70-yard field goal, Wesley, a freaking 70-yard field goal. And I don't know if you saw it, even if it was on Twitter or social media. It would have been good for 72-73. It wasn't a hits the crossbar and bounces over in. The current record, and this does not count because it's the preseason, 66 yards is the current record. There are people asking, do we have a field goal problem? What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that it's going to be offset by the fact that there's more and more information and coaches going into the stats that they should go for it on 4th down. So, I mean, I think, yes, field goals are becoming more and more approachable from a lot further away, but I think that teams are going for it on 4th down more than ever. So, I mean, it's going to be offset in that way. Let me ask you, should field goals be worth more points if they're further back?
This is where it's interesting. But here's the kicker for me. So the NFL changed the touchback to the 35, right?
Yep.
So if you watch the end of that first half in Jacksonville, I did because they were playing the Steelers. They only had to get 1 first down, and they were in field goal range.
Yep.
That is insane. And so if you're going to bump the touchback to the 35, if kickers, and who's the kicker in Dallas who has a huge leg? I'm sure he could probably.
Brandon Aubrey.
Yeah, I'm sure
Aubrey,
he could probably come close to a 70-yarder himself. And so if you're only having to go 10 yards till you're in field goal range, I don't know if that's what the league wants.
I think it's only going to matter at the end of halves. Because you're in such terrible shape if you miss it and you give the other team they need no first downs to kick a field goal.
Right.
So I think that, I understand, like, if it's in a preseason game, nobody cares. It's just a cool point. So, like, if we miss it, okay, well, we don't care if we give up this touchdown. So I think that there's kind of a difference there. It's just less likely in the regular season for in 98% of the game, unless you're at the end of the second or end of the fourth, for anybody to ever try one of those.
I mean, the league has been kind of crapping on kickers for a while now. Think about the extra point gets moved back, and now it's a little bit more of a challenge to kick the extra point. The hashes are closer in the NFL, so it is a little bit easier for kickers. I don't know if they wanted to make it even more challenging. So let's say they're like, distance isn't a thing anymore. You and I are old enough to remember when if someone made a 50-yarder, holy cow. We're reacting to a 50-yarder the way we're reacting to a 70-yarder today.
Yep.
I don't know. There's people that are thinking that they need to narrow the field goal posts. There's some people, I brought up the thought of what if they had like a kicker's hash, kind of like a college hash. The ball's never going to be placed there unless you're attempting a field goal kick. I don't know. Do they need to do anything, I guess, is a good question.
I mean, it is becoming a more difficult, skill. And like you've got, great kickers like Justin Tucker not having jobs this year. Like, so you got to figure out.
Was he great though? He did. I mean, I'm not talking about off the field stuff. He did struggle.
I was kidding. I will say the hashes. Like, I think the college hashes for kicking is the dumbest thing ever. These guys already can't kick, and we've got them like trying to do geometry and kick from weird angles, and I can't stand it. It's the weirdest thing. I honestly I think it's exciting to see it. I don't think that they're going to do anything. They would ever do anything for changing the posts or narrowing them or anything like that. I think it's just becoming part of the game. And again, it's going to really matter at the end of games or the end of halves when we can actually see some pretty ridiculous kicks. Now the kickoff, I don't even know what to say. Like, it's become such a mess of what kicking off and whether or not you can attempt a onside, and you got to tell everybody in the stadium that you're attempting an onside. Like, it's just, I have a lot of problems with that in fixing that, but they seem to be going the wrong direction of making it more complicated and less exciting every year.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing with kickoffs, but man, you bring up a point with the field goal. What if they had like a 5-point kick? What would be that line of demarcation for like a 3-point line in basketball? Would it be a 60-yarder? Well, if you have a 60-yard field goal, would that be a 5-point kick or a 4-point kick? Like, I'm intrigued.
I think you're probably talking about. I mean, I would have to look at real numbers, but it's 60s close. I think you've got to make it so enticing. We're talking about a 5-point. I mean, it's that 60 to 65 range, maybe somewhere maybe even like 63 is probably like what I would say is you're talking about kicks that are going to be like less than 3% of the time.
Right.
Or less than 3% of total kicks. But you need to make it enticing. I don't think 4 points would work. You need to make it enticing enough to where the offense really wants to go for it, needs to go for it. But it's got to be far enough back to where it's also scary, and you're giving the other team clear short field.
Yeah, that's like XFL-ish. I don't know if I want to go down that road, but it's still like, when you think about
it, we can have them try it out.
There you go, the spring leagues. All right, let's talk about something that obviously has continued to be an issue. All those players that we talked about last week in terms of contract issues still remain unsigned. Micah Parsons, Terry McLaurin, Trey Hendrickson. And now you can throw in another player who's not happy with his contract, and that's Pittsburgh Steelers defensive lineman Cam Hayward. And Cam's situation is unique. He's not like Terry McLaurin and Micah Parsons and all those other guys who are maybe in the last year of their contract and they want more money. He signed a contract last offseason, a 3-year extension, so another 4 years, 3 years tacked on to the end of his current deal, and he wants paid again. And he made over $14 million this year. 13 of that, plus some change, went in a signing bonus at March, so his base salary is only a $1.3 million. And he is saying that because he had an all-pro year last year, phenomenal year, he wants more money. Now, the Steelers typically do not negotiate contracts with players who are not in the final year of their contract unless they're a quarterback. Cam is not a quarterback. I find myself more and more just wondering, what is the end result for these contract disputes, Wesley? Like, it seriously feels like every single year, sometimes every single week, there's a player who said, well, I know I just signed that contract. I think I deserve more money. I mean, what's your take on the whole Cam Hayward situation?
The Cam Hayward one, it really irritates me. And I think this is a terrible. I can't see any point that he's making where last year he signed a new contract coming off of a down year. Yeah. If the Steelers would have come and said, "Hey, we're just basing your contract, off of last year," it would have been a lot lower contract that he would have signed. But now last year he wanted to sign a multi-year deal so that he had security.
Yep.
But now he doesn't want to honor a multi-year deal because he had one good year. And I've got to think that if I'm the Steelers, I'm like, well, okay, we'll go 1 year at a time with you. I mean, that also doesn't help them. Like, it's crazy that he got last year probably more contract than he deserved based on the previous season. And it was because of they know he was going to get healthier, he's going to get better, he's going to improve. He was in what he had done for multiple years, and he wanted multi-year security. And now that he got that, now he wants to get another a pay raise based off of 1 year. And it's just there has to be, and I don't know what it is, but there has to be some way that people have to start honoring their contracts. And people want to be like, oh, well, the team can cut them. Yeah, if the contract's not guaranteed. Like, both sides negotiate a contract, and if that's 2 or 3 or 4 years, like, people need to start having some sort of way of sticking to these contracts and holding people accountable. And it's just, for a team like the Steelers who have enough going on with a new quarterback and everything else is kind of going on with them, and they're in a really tough division, one of their supposed defensive leaders and veterans coming out and saying these things out loud to the media after a practice is just crazy to me. That this is, and it's something that he's saying it like he believes it, and I can't. There's not a single point he's making that I can agree with him on.
No, because he's saying, like, value. Like, I want to be valued. Okay, you've already received $13 million this year. Like, that was given to you in March as a roster bonus. I understand that he wants to be valued like other defenders, but you're also not, like TJ Watt. I get it. He gets $108 million guaranteed in his contract. That's a really large number. And I'm sure Cam Hayward, coming off an all-pro season, is saying, like, hey, I am equal, maybe not equal to, but I am a really big part of this defense. I'd feel like I should be deserved to get some more money. I guess my question is, without getting too into the weeds with the Steelers in particular, is there ever an end to this? Is there ever going to be a situation that could happen where, you know what, we're not going to have these disputes anymore? Is it going to guaranteed contracts like the Major League Baseball and NBA have?
No. There's just way too much injury and way too much, too many players hit a wall at some point. I think that, we're still going to look at a lot of 3-year contracts for these mid-veterans that are in their late 20s and stuff like that. And here's the deal, too. Here's why, I'm just forgetting about, is the NFL Players Association is the weakest players association or weakest union that there is in all of unions.
Yes.
You cannot have a strong union that's based on players who have an average career of 2 seasons. And sure, there's veterans that are holding out, but there's too many people that are going to be focused on how do I have some sort of benefits after retirement? Do I get some sort of money in this very short amount of time? And we're not going to talk about those guys. We're going to talk about the guys that have 10, 12, 15-year Hall of Fame careers, but they're so few and far between that they don't have the power there's not enough of the high enough percentage of them to have the power in these negotiations. The NFL Players Association is always going to be the weakest union in all of unions, but specifically in sports. And so I don't think there's ever a way that they're going to get that changed. And I think we've talked about it a few times on here. I think this next negotiation in the next few years is going to be really, really bad for them as far as what it looks like as a total dollar amount. Percentage-wise for what they're going to get. I think the owners are going to hit them hard this time.
I always try to keep the players in the back of my mind in terms of these negotiations and the players. Typically, fans will always side with the organization, and they'll say, like, I'm a fan of the Steelers, I'm a fan of the Saints, I'm not a fan of individual. I'm a fan of the players because they're a part of that organization.
Yep.
And I normally try and keep that in the back of my mind. Like, these players are trying to get as much money as they can, very short lifespan in terms of their careers, like you mentioned. But I can't say that I don't side with the Steelers in this situation. Cam Hayward's coming off of 2023 where it was an injury-plagued year. He had multiple groin surgeries in the offseason. He did not play a lot. He did not play well. And so the Steelers are like, look, you want multi-years? We'll give you multi-years, but we want to make it fair for us. And he signed that contract. And 1 year later, and he said publicly, I told him if I have an all-pro year, I'm going to be coming back to the table. And they chuckled. Well, okay. You know why they're chuckling? Because you signed the contract. You signed the 3-year extension, which a lot of Steeler fans
didn't like at the time.
Pissed that they gave him that deal. I mean, livid. And, Cam Hayward, for all the stuff that he's in Walter Payton Man of the Year, he's been nominated 1,000,000 times for the Steelers. He's the one that's like, I've got receipts of all those people that talk trash and all this stuff. It's like, well, I don't get what he's trying to do. Is he trying to get one last bag? I don't know. Like, it doesn't make sense. The Steelers get TJ Watt done. You're thinking they're not going to have any of these type of distractions. And then here's this. And Chris Boswell is doing the same thing, but he's just not talking to the media. So Chris Boswell also has won them a lot of games. I would be fine with them giving him a little bit more money. It's just a really weird situation. This Cam Hayward situation feels totally different than all the others that we've talked about. And I, honest to God, don't know how it's going to end. My prediction is the Steelers are going to take future money. They're going to slide it to this year, give it to him so he's paid more appropriately, and then they'll deal with next year. That's my guess. I don't know.
Seems like a mess. Hey, I do want to ask you, since the Steelers played the Jacksonville Jaguars in the preseason, is Travis Hunter going to be a two-way star? I know he had a couple of catches and he did play both ways a little bit. Did you see anything that makes you think that, like, is he actually going to get significant snaps on both sides of the ball?
I'll say as a receiver, he looks the part. And he can, people are like, he can't run routes because they saw a Twitter video or something. Like, the dude's still, he's electric with the ball in his hand. He's going to be a good receiver. Defensively, he only played a couple snaps. One of them, he couldn't bring
11
down,
on offense, 8 on defense.
Yeah, he couldn't bring down Caleb Johnson in the flat, and that's what everyone was talking about. But ultimately, I didn't notice him as like a liability or anything like that. So, but I'm also not paying that close attention to the Jaguars because I'm more focused on the other side of the football. But I think Travis Hunter will play defense. I actually do. I think that he'll play defense. Will he do it well? Will this be an early season experiment that then they abandon because he is a liability? I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I wonder if the players that have ever played two ways, like Deion Sanders, I don't know if that's even possible in today's NFL anymore. Do you think so?
No, I mean, I don't know. I think that he could play defensively. There's too much communication going on the defensive side of the ball to sub players in and out for a special package. It's one thing on offense to have somebody that's running routes, or like it's basically a special teams player that plays 30% of your snaps. That happens all the time. I just think that takes away from where his best value is, which is on the offensive side of the ball as a receiver, where I think he can be a distraction towards the defense. I think he's somebody that everybody's going to watch every single snap he plays, and so only playing him 30% of the time seems like a mess. Having said that, we keep hearing all these things about him playing all the snaps both ways and not ever getting tired, and we've just never seen that before. That doesn't sound possible, but he did it in college when it wasn't supposed to be possible. So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
The last thing I want to bring up with you is, what was your take on the Detroit Lions and Atlanta Falcons game where Maurice Norris, that injury, where he was on the turf for over 20 minutes, and the NFL was like, oh, we're just going to continue this preseason game in the fourth quarter, and Dan Campbell and I guess it was Raheem Morris in Atlanta said, like, no, like these guys are visually they're shaken up, and we should just call it a game. This game doesn't matter. What was your take on the NFL's response of thinking that they're actually going to continue the game, and did they do the right thing?
I mean, it proves that these games don't matter, first of all. I mean, but having said that, like, I think it sets a bad precedent for if they were to do this during a regular season game, or what do you do if it's a playoff game? Because I just think there's too many times where we draw the line and we're like, oh, this person had this type of injury, so that's more important than the game. And we'll change that. Well, is this injury more important than a regular season game? Is this injury more important than a playoff game? Is this injury more important than if it's the Super Bowl? Like if he dies on the field in the first quarter of the Super Bowl, or is the Super Bowl off?
You bring up a good point. You bring up a really good point.
I think, where are we drawing the line? And if we're drawing the line of preseason game, I got you. Preseason game I think it was the fourth quarter, right?
Yes, it was.
But preseason game in the fourth quarter, and it doesn't. I mean, the preseason games don't matter. But I just think gets to be a lot of implications on where is health. Like we've done this with the NFL forever about the concussion protocol. Like how important is it? Like okay, well we draw the line here with a concussion protocol and all this kind of stuff.
We're going to ban smelling salts, so that's going to help.
Yeah, but we're just banning. There has to be some sort of, and this is off subject, but there has to be some sort of study the NFL knows about smelling salts causing brain injuries, because they're like, NFL teams can no longer provide smelling salts. You got to bring your own. There's something they know, right?
Well, it's probably that they can kind of get you out of that mental fog if you do have a head injury and get you, I don't know. Well, but in 2017, at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati, Ryan Shazier watched that game on Monday Night Football, got paralyzed from the chest down.
Yep.
And you knew it.
Yep.
You watching this, everyone's watching. They've got cameras that are focused in. He's not moving his legs. And the Steelers, I remember Vince Williams, inside linebacker, was in tears. He was bawling on the field because he knew, like, what's going on. Like this is his inside linebacker mate, so to speak, and he's telling him, like, I can't move my legs. They still finished that game. Now, Damar Hamlin on that same cursed field, he actually dies on the field, gets revived on the field, and then the NFL's like, all right, let's just run to commercial and we'll be back. And then finally, they say we can't do this. So this is a weird situation. I don't think it's as black and white as some people believe. The NFL will probably come out with some type of stupid regulation and say, if a player's on the turf for 15 minutes, we'll do this. Or if he's, I don't know, man. It's really odd. It's difficult to talk about, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I think there's probably got to be a way that they are going to have to make I would say, a rule saying that regardless of injury, we're going forward with the game. I mean, they're and then, like, what if one of these huge injuries happens to this is normally going to be like a safety or cornerback doing these a lot, but let's say it's a quarterback. Quarterback gets an injury, we suspend the game, and that game should have now been in the advantage of the team who didn't lose a quarterback. And injuries are part of the game. Yeah. But now, because that game gets suspended 3 weeks, that quarterback that is knocked out of the game and can't play because he just got a concussion or whatever is now able to play the final 3 quarters of the game because he got a 3-week break. I mean, there's just gets to be a lot of stuff going on. Now, the Damar Hamlin one is the one he died on the field and they gave him CPR and retained his life.
Yeah.
There was a lot going on there. That was also the first quarter. That was the first quarter of the game, right? I think that was like 10 minutes into the game.
Definitely first half. I don't know if it was first quarter.
I'm pretty sure it was the first quarter. So I mean, obviously there's a lot in there, but they maybe need to have something in writing so that these coaches understand that regardless of what happened, like, you're not taking your team to the locker room and saying, like, we're not playing, and there's no, we just want to forfeit because we want to go be together. Like, there's too much money involved with that.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Like, there's a business aspect of this, and then there's the human aspect of it, and those lines can get blurred from time to time, and I don't know. It'll be interesting. But you know what? We got week 2 of the preseason coming up, Wesley. We're not previewing that. No, we're not doing that. But we'll be excited to talk about it next week, that's for sure. But why don't you tell everyone where they can find your Saints coverage and where they can find you on social media?
You can find me on X at WhoDatWesley13. We talk about the Saints and our future number 1 overall draft pick at quarterback at Dome Patrol PCast or Dome Patrol Podcast on all your streaming platforms. Jeff, where can we find your Steelers contract negotiation coverage?
Oh, yeah. It's at J Hartman, HARTMAN_PIT, or Steel Curtain Network, wherever you get your podcasts, or steelcurtainnetwork.com. That's a wrap, man. Wesley, thanks for your time, man. We'll talk next week. Take it easy.
See you next week.